Hey, smooth as silk, folks. So, welcome to the Animal Rights Show.
Hey.
Wendy is having a few tech problems, so but we'll hope to resolve those. Now, the eagle-eyed of you, because we've done no publicity on this, will notice that we have a special guest panelist, Jon Cross. Welcome, Jon. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Welcome, Jon.
Very good. Well, we'll just allow people to make their way in. Hello, Jeremy the Ape, Bernie V, Jean, and Carolyn Harris. Welcome along, indeed. Ooh. So, how are we all doing? Are you still hearing us, Wendy? That's the main thing.
Yeah, just slightly. I'm in one ear with a little bit of a ring to it as well. So it's like that tinnitus kind of thing. But hey ho,
right.
hey ho.
Okay. Well, close your bad eye and see if that makes it better.
Oh, I can hear you perfectly well now. It's amazing.
Oh my God.
I'm sure that's some kind of Monty Python or Spike Milligan joke, that, isn't it? It has to be.
It's bound to be, yeah. So, hello, Deb. Galaxy Vegan has joined us. Ronnie Lee. Ronnie Lee.
Who?
That's a name, isn't it? You remember that?
Yeah, it rings a bell, but I can't think.
Philip Murphy. Hello from New York City.
Hey,
New York. What do you say on that one, Wendy?
New York. New York. Philip's having his lunch, no doubt, in New York.
So, Jon, we're very excited about this program. It's an absolute honor to have you here. And vegan for 80 years, which is like almost twice the amount of me. What is it? A bit more than three times for you, Wendy? And Nella was vegan from last week, so she doesn't.
Nella, are you going to put up with that?
Oh, yeah, no problem. I have a question for Jon, though. Do you think, since we are the oldest vegan person in the UK, that you are probably the oldest vegan person in Europe or even in the world? Have you ever thought about that?
No, it's an honour, really. If you yeah, I've never really thought about it, but it could be. I don't know.
It could be.
Could be. I don't know.
You've just been waiting for everybody else to catch up, haven't you, Jon?
Yeah, it's been a long wait.
So we're talking about 1942. You were born.
Yeah.
And so whereabouts were you born again?
Banbury in Oxfordshire.
Banbury in Oxfordshire. That's right. Yeah. And you were born into a pack, in the sense that you were born into a family with 7 dogs. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And you said they were all on a plant-based diet as well, so that was pretty good.
Yes, all our dogs were vegan. Yes, and they all lived to a ripe old age, except one that had to be put down because it was chasing sheep.
Okay. Well,
but they did in those days. It's
Well, they're doing these days.
Well,
I imagine if Wendy let Dylan out, he might.
Who? Dylan? Who, me?
Hey, look at Dylan.
I wouldn't do that.
Oh.
Look at that face. He's like, he's going to climb on the table.
Up there, isn't he? Quite saintly.
He's lovely. He's lovely.
He is lovely. But he's about to climb on the table any second. He's literally taken over from where Brian's upstairs crying, wondering what happened to his contract. And Dylan's literally about to climb on the table and step in. He's like, yeah, there's a new man in town, Bryce. Step away.
So, Jon, tell us about these hospital tests that you went to, and they did some vicious experiments on you and your sister.
Well, there's your answer. Yes, I can't have been more than about 5 or 6, and I can't remember a great deal about it, except that we went to a hospital in North London somewhere, stayed there for a week, my sister and I, and we had these tests, which I don't remember much about, if anything. for a week because they didn't believe that a vegan child could be that, couldn't be, there must be something wrong with us. But they couldn't find anything, and at the end of the week, my parents came to pick us up, and we all sat in the doctor's room, and he said, well, it's not healthy to be as healthy as your kids are. Yeah, so we were rather glowing with that.
Well, it's a great compliment, isn't it? But I just got this vision of your mum and dad just driving up to to and kind of just dumping you there and say, "We'll see you in a week."
Didn't have cars in those days. They'd have been train, underground train or something, whatever.
And you got this story that after all the tests, the sun came out and everything went blue, you said.
Yeah, we've been having some tests, and we were going back to the digs in the hospital, wherever they were. I can't remember now. And we were walking down a quite long corridor between buildings, and everything went blue for me. Absolutely everything. And it lasted 2 or 3 minutes, and then went, and it's never happened since.
Yeah, well, this would be about what?
Very weird.
1946. So I'm telling you, that's the day when the sun came out in Britain.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
it certainly did.
Did they give you any weird concoctions during your tests and stuff, John? Like that might have had an effect on you to have that.
To be perfectly honest, Wendy, I don't remember. I only remember having one lot of blood taken from my arm. I may have had more, but I can only remember one.
Yeah.
I mean, it was 74 years ago. I've slept since then.
Yeah, it's a lot to remember, isn't it, for such a long time?
Yeah.
I just wondered, John, what were your experiences? Have you got other memories of early experiences as one of the first kind of children being raised vegan?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that'll do. Yeah, that's a good answer. He doesn't recognise my voice. That's what it is. I don't know. I was thinking about that, and I never queried it. I never did. I just, it was what it was, and we were vegan, and the word vegan hadn't even been invented then. When I was very young, that young, and I just never questioned it. I just grew up like all the other kids, not even thinking about it. To be perfectly honest.
Was there a moment that was there a moment you became aware of maybe that you were being raised differently to your friends and other kids around you, or other families that you were around and things?
I didn't think about it. They did. They did, but I didn't. My early years at primary school were quite horrendous, to be honest. Yeah,
could you tell us more about that? What happened?
Verbally and physically abused, and it wasn't very nice at all. It was every day, every break. One of the things I remembered since I last spoke to you, my dad made me at the age of 5 give the class a talk about veganism, and he wrote it all out for me. And I read it out to the class, and that absolutely, well, it made it worse, to be honest.
Wow.
I was quite shy, but the kids just couldn't believe it, and they were only 5 as well, that sort of age. But I think the headmistress, who wasn't a very nice person, I think she talked my dad into asked him for me to do it, which of course made me stand out even more.
No, it certainly would. That's almost guaranteed to have done it, really. But I suppose for your classmates, 5-year-olds, it would have been a weird idea for them to get their head around, I suppose. We know what kids are like. Any little difference, they will pick on it, won't they? So, yeah, you were kind of heading for a fall a little bit then.
Yeah.
You were saying that things got a little bit easier when you got a bit older and went to college.
Yes, but I did have one or two, not heated conversations, but one or two conversations with. But most of them, by the time we were 18 and 18 years old, and they sort of they accepted me as a person without any problems at all. There was no bullying. There was nothing like that. They couldn't understand why I was vegan, but I tried to explain it to them, but they just thought it was weird. But they didn't. They never took it out on me. There was none of that.
So
John, you never tempt. Sorry,
Wendy,
we're so excitable. We've got so many questions for John.
I know, yeah.
It's literally like we just want to sit you there and just interrogate you. Sorry, John.
I will say nothing.
Right, Mr. Cross, answer this.
I will ask the questions.
John, I just wondered, did you ever have that? Were you ever tempted at any point during when it was very difficult for you, when you were being bullied and taunted by your kind of peers and stuff like that? Did you ever get tempted to reject your vegan upbringing? And because I know that does happen in families, doesn't it? Like children will be brought up as vegans and then go against that. Were you ever tempted to do that? How would that have gone down with your dad and your family? It
wouldn't have gone down very well. But
Right.
no, I didn't know. I never gave that a thought. It is what it was. What it was, and I just accepted it without question. To be honest, without question.
Mm-hmm.
I assume that throughout your life, especially in old days, like in your 20s or 30s, you had doctors telling you that what you were doing was dangerous and you were putting yourself at risk. Did you ever felt that there is maybe something there that may be right, that because the information was not there back then?
Well, no. I mean, it's not like it is today. I mean, it's just as easy now to be vegan as a meat eater now. But when we did it, I mean, my dad was a gardener, and we had absolutely everything in our garden in season: fruits, vegetables, everything. You name it, my dad grew it because we had quite a large garden, and he used to spend hours out there every day. I can remember helping him sometimes. But yeah, no, I never questioned it. I'll be perfectly honest, I never questioned it. We did what we were told in those days. First time. Because the second time you got a clip round the ear.
Yeah, and actually, vegan Potterhead says something about that, saying that when their kids will be vegan if they want a roof over their heads, and then they say they're actually joking. But actually, that's the kind of stuff you used to get as a kid, wasn't it? Especially, I don't know if it's the north, up north, been brought up north as well. You do, yeah, you do. You're told you get a clip round the ear, and
up north.
You'll be out up north.
Up north.
I've only been up here since 1978.
Oh, okay, yeah, of course.
I lived in Denham in Buckinghamshire, South Buckinghamshire, till I was about 25.
You were lucky, John, because I don't think there was any electricity or running water up there until about then. So you were lucky there.
I probably arrived at just the right time. Yes.
I don't think the wheel had arrived up north either until then. Just
it probably
still hasn't in Rotherham.
We won't take the mickey out of Wendy for that now, will we?
No.
Yes, I don't mind. I've probably said much worse myself.
So, John, there must have been a time in your teens, I suppose, when you started to encounter vegetarians more often. Would that be right or not?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember it. No.
Did you ever come across other vegans back then?
Sorry?
Did you ever come across other vegans back then?
No. Only adults. There were some adults that my dad knew, and we visited and had tea and little cucumber sandwiches and things, and
Did you have the crusts cut off, John? Did you have the crusts on or off? Crusts off? The cucumber sandwiches?
No, I like them as they are. I'll eat it all. Me.
I wonder, did your dad sort of try to convert other people around him, and other kind of friends, relatives, and things like that? Was he an early outreacher, or did he just kind of live by example, or did he kind of try and spread the philosophy and the message?
He did go all around the country giving talks to various societies and organisations, but that was mainly about milk. Mainly, that was in the early days when Plant Milk Society was formed. It was before the company was formed. And I know he had a car then, and he used to go around all over the shop giving his talks. I think he's a bit like me. He just wants to live his life as he wants to and get on with it and be left alone. He wasn't he wasn't a preacher, but he was a very keen vegan, very keen. But he didn't go and talk to people and say, look, you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that. Not in general, anyway. Only with these talks, when he gave them, he'd say, this is why we're doing it.
He reserved all that. You shouldn't do this for you, I suppose, John. But I read that the talk about milk was called the milk of human kindness. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, my dad coined that phrase. Yeah. That was the it used to be on the cans of milk.
Okay.
A cow took it. There was a picture of a drawing of a cow and a calf. That's right.
Yeah,
that's for humans, dear. I think
that's right. Yeah, we were looking. I don't think it was an Damn Right show, but we're looking at that recently, and people were saying, "Wow, that's really," because there are new adverts for some plant milk which say this is milk, but it's for humans.
Yes.
And it's a very similar idea. So it goes to show that there's no new ideas in some ways.
No. But we've all been, well, not we, but in general, we've all been brainwashed into thinking that we should drink milk because it's good for us, and we should have it because it's good for us. But it's not. Milk is a baby food. No other animal but humans has milk after weaning, being weaned.
Let alone from a different species. I mean,
exactly. That's exactly right. It's a baby food. We don't need it. Adults don't need it. It's useful. Don't get me wrong. You can use it in all sorts of recipes and things like that. But we don't need it. Everybody's been brainwashed into thinking that we need it, and we don't.
You did mention that your father was especially worried about dairy.
Yes.
Was he worried about the dairy industry? Did he have any ideas about what the future will bring and the magnitude of the exploitation?
Well, he was rather hoping that Plamil would kick off, probably a bit naively in those days, that it would kick off and it would change the world, fairly quickly, which of course it didn't. But he was mainly concerned with the cruelty in the dairy industry. I can remember we lived on an island when I was young. Our estate was on an island, and we had fields all round us. And I can remember hearing the cows crying for their little ones that were taken away after a few days. And they'd be out in the fields, and it would go on all day and all night. The cow would be crying. You could tell the difference. It wasn't an ordinary mooing sound. It was a proper mooey cry. They were crying for their kid, and it was heartbreaking to hear it. It really was. It was, yeah. I mean, you don't.
And of course, a lot of farmers really deny that, don't they? They say that that's not true. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, but how? It's got to be true. It's logical, because the only way an animal produces, the female of the species produces milk, is when they have a baby. and that milk dries
Absolutely.
up when the baby stops suckling.
And they have a very strong bond, like, you know, like
they
any
have
mother
a
and
strong
child.
bond like we do.
Absolutely.
They're very sentient animals. They're very sentient, and they've got emotions and feelings, the same as we have. But of course, they don't understand like we do. But the only way a farmer can produce milk is to take the calf away after a few days and milk the cow twice a day. And that only lasts for probably about a year at the most. And then it has to have another calf to produce milk again. And it's over and over and over again, and it must be horrendous for the animals, for them.
You know, in relation to that thing about they need to be pregnant to lactate, it's still remarkable in this day and age that a lot of people don't even know that.
That's right. Yeah. Quite right. Yeah.
Absolutely. And some people surprisingly don't even know that that the, you know, the kind of the cow's milk, or when it's not called cow's milk, well, cow's milk actually comes from cows, because they just see it as milk. I remember having a conversation with someone years ago, and when I was saying, you know, isn't it strange that you still drink milk? Would you drink your own, you know, human breast milk? And they just stared at me and said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, where do you think that milk comes from? And they just went, well, off the shelves. I was like, really? And I just thought, well, it just appears on the shelves, and it's just a, you know, a product that is made. They didn't even realize that milk was from a cow.
That's the thing with it. They don't. And what comes out of the cow bears no resemblance to what you get in a bottle in the supermarket. I had an uncle, and he was a dairy farmer all his life, and I used to spend some of my summers down there on the farm. Probably because my dad was sending me to reinforce, you know, how we felt about it. But I did enjoy it mostly. But at that age, I wasn't aware so much of what went on because I was only young.
Was this an uncle on your dad's side or your mum's side?
No, it's on my mum's side.
Okay. Was there ever any clashes between like that your mum, your dad, and your uncle with that whole farming and veganism?
No. But like I said, my dad is a bit like me. He wasn't confrontational, and he wasn't a preacher. But having said that, he made his feelings known. That I do know. But I don't know. It was a long, long time ago. It was he was an uncle by marriage to my mum's younger sister. And of course, these people are very entrenched in what they do, and you can't change their minds. There's no point in even trying. You know, I mean, that sounds perhaps, I don't know, weak, but you can't change their minds. It's impossible.
Yeah, I think it's hard for us to change their minds, but actually there are people who do change their minds, aren't there? There are a lot of, and I think actually Bernie V is saying that exact thing here. The cruelty towards cows by the farmers is so horrific. People do not want to believe it. I was one of those people. Well, I don't. Oh, actually, sorry, Bernie V. I thought I misunderstood that. I thought that Bernie V was saying that they were previously a farmer or something, but maybe that's not right. But I know that there are people who have been farmers and slaughterhouse workers and butchers and all these kind of people. Well, Tom Reagan himself as well, who wrote the case for animal rights. You know, you do get people who do have these jobs who are very, very entrenched in exploitation and killing, but then do change to and you know, reform and become vegan. So it does happen, doesn't it?
Well, it does, but it's rare. With somebody that was that entrenched in it, it's rare. But yes, it can happen. I used to work with somebody who used to work in a slaughterhouse till he came to where I was, and he eventually went back there. After a bit, he went back. But you can't change. Some people they still think it's weird. They still do. But we're getting there slowly. More and more people are looking at it and changing, so that's all to the good.
Yeah, social change is slow. This comment here from ethically based ex-omnivore kind of goes almost like back to what we were saying about those tests, John, in the sense that he goes, why? How is Jon Cross still alive? Don't we know that according to the anti-vegans, every vegan quits or dies after every 2.5 years? Because there is this modern thing, John, and it's called vegan deterioration. And there's this kind of mythology that's going around saying that, usually the time scale is usually about 7 years, that, people can't really be vegan after 7 years. And it's surprising how these kind of lies just keep going, even in the modern age, as it were.
From? Where do they get those ideas from?
Well, sometimes I think it's what they want to believe rather than what they do believe, I think sometimes. In the sense that they're looking, we know that they're always looking for reasons to resist the idea of veganism.
Brian wanted to come and say hello. He said he had to meet Jon Cross.
Long time no see, buddy.
He's like, yeah, the dog's gone out, so I'm here.
All right, seize the opportunity, I see.
Absolutely. Well, the dog's away and all that.
Very opportunist, cats are. Cats are very opportunist.
You're right there, John.
Not Brian, surely, Wendy.
It's lovely.
He's a lovely boy. He's a show regular. He used to be a show regular, John, but he hasn't been on for a while, have you?
Here's a question that we were going to ask you ourselves, I think, John, which is, do you keep up with all the new kind of vegan products, all the kind of processed stuff? Personally, there's loads of the stuff that's come out in the last 3 years that I've never even tried. But, do you kind of try them, or do you stick away from it, or what?
No, I do try some. I'm a little bit stuck in the mud. Stick in the mud. I like what I have and I stick to it. I don't I don't have a massively varied diet. I've got a few things that I like, enough for something different every day. But I get I get some meals from a company called All Plants. All Plants it's called, and I get 7 meals every fortnight from them, and they're all vegan. I have to be a bit careful because I don't like spicy food, and a lot of them they put quite a bit of pepper in and stuff like that on some of them, but they're lovely dishes.
Do they deliver then, John? You can't give me the address, can you?
No, they deliver. No, they deliver.
I get those as well, John.
Do you? Yeah,
I get those deliveries.
They're very good. They're very good. I did try another firm, but that all came as ingredients, and you had to cook it yourself. So I'm afraid most of that went to waste. A lot of it did anyway, because I'm not a cook. My wife was a cook, and a very good one, and I learnt a lot from her, but not enough to cook like she does. I can't do roast potatoes, for instance. I cannot. It looks easy. It looks easy when she did it, and when my son does it, but I can't. I've never been able to do it.
Here's a point for perhaps for Nella and Wendy, really, because this is Vegan Potterhead. I can't understand how there can be mothers who either cannot or even worse refuse to empathize with another mother and continue eating dairy. It's always been, I've thought that, you could not, it's not an excuse, but you can almost like see there should surely, in terms of awareness, be a gender difference. Like that thing about being pregnant and lactating and everything. You'd expect there to be a gender difference, wouldn't you?
I don't understand that either. I was at an outreach event 2 days ago, and I had this conversation. The bystander, a woman, and she claimed to be a feminist, and I was talking to her about the exploitation of female bodies by the industry, and she didn't want to hear it. She kept telling me, I'm not like them. They are lesser beings. That's how people manage to not care about other animals and other mothers.
That's that you've hit the nail on the head there. A lot of people just don't care. They just don't care.
The disconnect is so astonishing, isn't it? There's a disconnect, and I think it is that entrenched speciesism, that the empathy, the compassion is so disconnected because of that kind of separation of us from other animals.
They see all these adverts on the telly, and they never show you anything that they don't want you to see. They never show you the truth. I've never bought anything in my life due to an advert yet. Never. If I find something I like, I'll have a go at it. And if I don't like it, I don't. But you ask any young child today, most of them, where does meat come from? Where does milk come from? And they'll say the supermarket. And that is all they know. Because their parents just don't tell them. Either they don't know, or don't want to know, or they don't want their kids to know. I don't know what the answer is.
They don't want their kids to know. I've known a couple of kids that they asked, and the parents, although they are not vegan or vegetarian, they answered honestly, and from that point on, the kids denied to eat any animals. They kept eating dairy, obviously because they were very young and could not know the whole story, but they denied to eat anything that they could recognize as an animal.
Well, this is it. I mean, the kids go from centre of these towns, centre of London or any of the big cities. They go out into the country on a coach trip, and they look in the fields and say, "What's that?" It's a cow. What's a cow? They just don't know. Nobody tells them.
There certainly is a lot of ignorance about, generally speaking. Do you ever remember, John, that your father, and the early years of the Vegan Society, really, do you think they ever did any kind of school talks? That I've not seen any reference to them managing to get into schools. And of course, back then it would have been even harder than now, in the sense that, the teachers, presumably, or the school authorities would probably be very wary of what someone would say to their kids, and then they go running back and go, "Mummy and Daddy, I'm a vegetarian, I'm a vegan now," and then the school would get it in the neck. And so I don't recall any kind of early stuff about school talks. Don't know whether you did.
No, I never heard anything when I was younger, but now schools do provide vegetarian and vegan meals. Most schools do supply them now.
Well, I think they might have to now because of this protected status thing that came through. Yeah. Interesting. So if we move on then to one of the big concerns of your father, Leslie, it was the development of plant milks. And so he was a major player in this. And so we've got some shots of the Plamil. Well, first of all, they had to change the name, right, because of the EU.
It was the Milk Marketing Board that made the first complaint. Said we couldn't call it milk because it didn't come from an animal. And unfortunately, the law upheld that, so we had to change it to Plamil.
Yeah, but what about coconut milk? Everybody says coconut milk.
I know. Yes, I know. We've had that before. Yeah, you're right. But unfortunately, they said we've got to change it.
So they knocked the K off milk and called it mill. So this is an early shot of the early factory, John.
That is yes. Let me put my glasses on. I might be able to see it. Yes, that's Mrs. Stark. I don't know who that is in the background. I have no idea. But that
John,
go on.
Sorry, go on.
The one that's in the background, standing up by that shiny drum-looking thing, that was where all the ingredients went. That was the size of the batch. That was the machine that all the ingredients went into and were mixed up, and then they went through 2 stages of homogenization, and 1 or 2 other things that we had to do to it to make sure it didn't there's a word for it, isn't there, for stuff that breaks down. Anyway, that's what that's the original mixer that we made. That's the size of it.
You mentioned that one of the first challenges they faced was to produce something white.
Say that again. Sorry.
You mentioned that one of the first challenges they faced was to produce a white milk.
Oh yes. The problem was that we wanted to make it using protein from green leaf cabbages. That's which you can see there. That's all cabbage leaves and stuff, and that's Mrs. Stark sorting it, ready for processing. But it always came out green. So it came out with the chlorophyll in it, and nobody knew how to get rid of the chlorophyll. Nobody. But Bill Stark, who's the one in the rather dirty white coat at the back there. This is before any milk production, by the way. I don't want you to think we were like that when we were producing the milk, because it wasn't. He had a secret chat with my dad, because we'd been trying to do it for a long time, and the money that we'd raised to start this project was running out, and Bill and my dad got together in the little office, which is the opposite end of the factory to where they are, and they had a secret tryst, if you like. But Bill said, "I've got an idea. I think it might work." So Dad said, he said, "You do it, but we mustn't tell anybody before you do it, in case it doesn't, because it all costs money." Anyway, as you can see, it did work the first time. It worked perfectly. We had one or two companies apply when they must have seen that photo or heard about it. "Well, how do you do it? How did you do that?" I said, "Well, you can find out. We're not telling you."
So John, this is your dad. That's your dad on the right, isn't it?
No, it's my dad on the left.
On the left.
Yeah, and that's the first batch that came out white after Bill Stark designed this process. And that in there, the other one, that's Dr. Hugh Franklin. He's that's him here with my dad as well. That's the same two people.
That's when your dad had long hair there, John.
Well, not very much of it though.
No.
bit like me. In fact, I showed that photo to my son today, and he said, "Oh, that's where we get the high forehead, is it?"
It says here in the caption something about the protein throw resulting from the gas ring experiment. So there's obviously a lot of experiments going on.
There's a lot of things going on in the background, trying to do this and trying to do that. Hugh Franklin was ever such a lovely chap, but he was a complete 100% boffin, and he was. We used to have lots of chats, and I loved him. He was a magic person. But yes, that's the first batch that came out when Bill did his experiment, and that's my dad holding it up.
So where does Arthur fit into this story?
That was my father knew him before the Vegan Society was even thought of. I don't know how they initially got in touch with each other. I honestly don't. Perhaps Arthur had written something and it was on. I don't know. I can't answer that. But anyway, he and Arthur and my dad got together and formed the Plant Milk Society, of which Arthur was the treasurer, my dad was the secretary, and we had a chairman, a CEO if you like, chairman of the board or whatever you like to call it, and we had meetings at Friend's house in London, the Quaker headquarters.
Yeah.
And we had those once a year, for several years, and I went to every single one of them. And that's how they got together. That might have even started it. The Plant Milk Society he might have read about it, heard about it, and got in touch with Dad. I don't know, but that's how they were there then. And the whole idea was to form a company eventually to produce this plant milk, which again, Arthur was the accountant for it. My dad was the managing director, I suppose you'd call him, and they ran it between them in the early days. And once production started, thanks to Bill Stark, if he hadn't done what he did, Plant Milk would never, or Plamil Foods would never have been. It's all totally due to what Bill did. That the company's still there, still going.
And didn't you say, John, that Bill's not a vegan as well?
No,
Interestingly.
he wasn't. No, he wasn't a vegan. He wasn't a vegetarian.
Mm.
But he worked for Hugh Franklin, Dr. Franklin. He had some premises in London, in Fulham, more like a laboratory, and he did all his experiments and stuff there. It was a proper backroom type thing. And Hugh Franklin paid Bill Stark. That was his job. He paid his wages because Hugh Franklin was the world's leading authority on yeast, and he discovered Marmite, and he sold the patent on it. He patented it, luckily, quickly, and he sold the patent for an awful lot of money. So money meant nothing to him. He got lots of it. Anyway, so once Bill did that, then we were able to proceed with working the formula out for the milk properly and getting production going. Otherwise, Plamil would not be there today if it hadn't been for Bill Stark. He doesn't get half the recognition he should have.
Yeah, and another forgotten person. Money for nothing and your milk for free. So this brings us up to date here, John.
Yeah. That's that's Arthur Ling's eldest son, Adrian, who is the CEO of Plamil Foods, and it's totally down to him that it's still going, because for reasons I'm not going to get into, when it moved from Langley in Buckinghamshire down to Folkestone in Kent, his dad went with it. Arthur Ling went with it, and he ran the company down there. And he got, in his old age, he was 75, something like that, 75, getting on for 80. He was very frail, and we had a board meeting and retired him, and Adrian took over. And Adrian has brought it on in leaps and bounds, done an absolutely amazing job. And I went down there a few weeks ago. We made a documentary, which I haven't seen the result of yet. It's still in the cutting room, I think. And spent 2 days down there and went all around the factory. There's about 5 large buildings like that now, and they employ about 150 people. It's a big company now. It was just one building when it went down there.
Yeah, Joanna Whale is asking if Adrian is a lifetime vegan as well.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, but he's only 60. I think he's about 60 something.
Oh, just a whippersnapper, John.
Yeah.
He's a rugrat. Yeah.
So, John, do you feel like Plamil Foods has been like almost a cornerstone of the movement? Then, do you feel like has an important role?
Yes, I think so. Yes, because we were the first to produce a milk from natural ingredients like that, and yes, it started the ball rolling. I know it's expensive compared to the others, but the others those that you buy in a supermarket generally are not alternatives to dairy milk and should never be used as such, because they're not. They're just a drink. Plamil plant milk was a full alternative to dairy milk, with all the vitamins, proteins, and everything. It was everything was geared to the human body, not the coarse, quick growth of a calf, which is what dairy milk's designed for. And they're still making it today. Yeah, he's done a good job with it. Yeah, he has. He's what's it? The vegan. What's it? The Charlie and the Chocolate Factory bloke.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's the vegan one.
Vegan Charlie.
That's it. Yes, if you look somewhere on the site, there's a picture of him in full dress and everything, makeup and everything. Yeah. Yeah.
Willy Wonka.
Willy
Tim's
Wonka.
saying, yeah. Willy Wonka. Thanks, Tim.
The Willy Wonka. That's
Couldn't
it.
think either.
No, and he is absolutely spitting image of the original.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can imagine him actually. I can imagine he's got that kind of
Yeah.
persona where you could imagine him being quite theatrical. Yeah.
He's very theatrical. He dresses every day with some of the makeup on, in case kids, that when they get a lot of people visit the factory and tour it, and he dresses up for them. So rather than, because you ladies will know how long it takes to get made up sometimes, and
It takes me ages, John.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Roger takes twice as long as me and Nella.
I know.
I have
I try to
trouble
be
with-
real careful. That's why.
Well, I do. I mean, I have to do my hair very carefully. One down the middle and one each side. You've got to get it right.
I thought yours was a Bobby Charlton, no?
Shh. No. No, I know that was funny. That, yeah. No, he's halfway there every day, with the a lot of the what he needs to be to do it. So like the nail varnish, all different colours and weird and wonderful stuff. And cause,
You mentioned the documentary, John. What's it about? Just about the factory and the
yes,
idea, or?
it's all about, well, basically what we've been talking about this evening, all about Plamil foods and from the very early days when we were still experimenting, right way up to today. It's all about that, yeah.
I don't know whether you know this, but Plamil and companies like Plamil, but Plamil in particular, caused a big problem for vegans in the 1980s, in the sense that when the supermarkets started to stock plant milks, there was this argument that we should always support the vegan companies like Plamil, because the supermarkets were kind of fly by night. They would drop it as quick as they adopted it and all the rest of it.
Oh yeah.
And then the other side of that coin was, yeah, but if it becomes a success in the supermarket, it's going to be much more widely available, and that's always been a problem, because Plamil was always a bit more expensive, and yet all the vegans I knew wanted to support them, but they also wanted the development of plant milks in supermarkets.
Yeah, well, like I said, the plant milks that you buy in the market are not an alternative to dairy milk. Plamil is, or was. I think they do two versions of it, but that was when we made it. I made it. It was a full alternative to dairy milk. There was even a baby formula for it, which my son was fed on, because he got very, very bad eczema over his head when he was a baby, when he was born. My wife couldn't feed him, and she tried various different things, and none of it worked. So I said, right, well, we're going to put him onto Plamil, which we did, and literally within 24 hours it started receding. It had come down all the way over his head, down to his eyebrows, his eyelids. It was. I was scared stiff it was going to get into his eyes, but we just stopped it in time. He grew up on it, and he still uses it. But again, he buys it from the supermarket, and it's not full alternative to milk, which it doesn't matter, because as adults, like I said earlier, milk is a baby
don't need
food.
it.
It's not meant for adults. We don't need it, so it doesn't matter that then they're not a full alternative.
We've got Tim Barford in the house. Tim Barford is the manager of VegFest UK, the biggest VegFest in Britain, and he's saying here that Plamil stopped doing the mayonnaise because of the supermarket brands, and so there's always that tension, isn't there, between all that. But then Tim goes on to say something that you said before we went on air, which was that their big investment is in producing chocolate for manufacturers these days. You said that, didn't you?
Yes, any vegan chocolate that you buy is most likely to have been made by Plamil Foods. Adrian found a niche in the market and geared up for it, and that's where they get most of their income now. They still produce stuff, but if you want to know why they stopped doing a lot of the things that they used to make, you need to talk to Adrian, because he explains why very, very carefully and clearly. Just phone the factory and have a word with him. I'm sure he'll talk to you. He did tell me, but it's a bit long drawn out, and it's a business thing.
Nobody talks to us, John. Did Plamil did Plamil ever make it into supermarkets, or was that never on? Or
no, I don't think so, because we sold to the health food shops. All health food shops used to sell it, and a lot of the other stuff that they made, and some of which they still do. But it's like Adrian did say to me that the problem is that these big companies are making stuff in batches that make ours look like a teapot size, even though they're quite big, and they undercut Plamil Foods. That he also said about the milk, why it's more expensive. He said we can't even buy the cartons for what it's selling for in the supermarket. They don't sell enough of it to. I mean, they're making batches of millions of them at a time, whereas we were doing, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a dilemma, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. They're selling stuff for less than he can buy the materials for it. But then they're talking about worldwide outlets, and massive whole batch runs on a factory, producing it by the million, and of course they get it cheap, and Plamil Foods can't do that.
Yeah.
Furthermore, very often you have dairy companies producing plant milk.
Yes,
mostly, isn't it?
Yeah, and as I said, Plamil was. I'm not sure if it still is. I'd have to look at it. It was a full alternative. What they're producing now that you buy in the supermarkets is not. There are a couple out there, I've been told. I've never bought one, but I've been told there is.
It's difficult, isn't it? And World Vegan Market has just posted a comment as well about this whole thing. It's very difficult that you have vegan brands competing with non-vegan brands, but that have much more buying power and you know,
Exactly,
in that way.
exactly,
And
yeah.
it's the same thing with like restaurants as well, isn't it? You'll have a really lovely kind of very like wholly vegan, run by vegan cafe or restaurant, but they're then competing with these huge kind of chains that are offering vegan options, and it's very difficult because you want to try and support the actual vegan brand, the vegan restaurant or whatever. But often you end up, and especially if there isn't that vegan restaurant where you are, or you know, if the choice isn't there, you end up kind of going for the vegan option at a very maybe unethical company and unethical restaurant or whatever. So it's very tricky.
We're all in the same boat. We've got, especially today, as things are at the moment, we've got to get. We go out and buy the cheaper alternatives. My son said to me on Sunday, his partner went out shopping, and he said she had to go to Asda this week because for whatever reason, and she spent nearly twice as much for the same thing that she could get at Aldi. It was almost half the price at Aldi for the same stuff. Exactly. I think she said she spends normally about £90 a week for the three of them, which to me is absolutely phenomenal. But there you go. But and that they get everything they want. She went to Asda. It cost her £160, and she didn't get everything she wanted.
This week's Animal Rights Show, folks, is sponsored by Asda.
I'm sorry about that.
Do you obviously, John, you'll know that places like McDonald's and Burger King are now doing a plant-based version of things. Do you think it's a danger if vegans promote that too much? And you know, because like I said before, they're just going to drop that stuff as quick as anything, aren't they? If it doesn't go well.
Oh yeah.
Or do you think it's a good idea?
Well, I think anybody selling vegan stuff is a good idea, but my youngest daughter, informed me the other day that you can buy vegan burgers at, is it Starbucks or somewhere like that?
Sure, it's not Aldi?
No. And you know, I know, and it's like, you know, already made. You can buy it over the counter like at McDonald's. But they don't fry it on a separate hob. It's fried on the same hob that they use with the meat ones. I think she said that McDonald's do it on a different hob, so that's only used for the vegan ones. So I don't know. I think anybody that sells vegan stuff is good. It's as simple as that. This is one of the reasons. This is one of the problems we had when Arthur was running Plamil Foods. He would not deal with anybody who wasn't ethically vegan. Any company, which you can't do. You've got to if you want the business to keep going, you have to compromise, because the outlets where you sell stuff are not necessarily vegan outlets.
I think as vegans, our whole lives seem to be about navigating these compromises, doesn't it? Like how far, where do we draw our lines? How far do we compromise on this product, this value? Do we eat with others who consume other animals? Do we not? Do we, you know, do we buy this product from a non-ethical company because it is a vegan option? Do we not? Do we buy this new product from this company that actually invest in animal testing, or do we not? It's a constant navigation and compromise, isn't it? And trying to find your own boundaries and really kind of embody the values as much as you can. But it's not flipping easy, John, is it? Let's face it.
It certainly ain't.
John, have you noticed a different? Have you noticed a massive difference from when, obviously, because you're a lifetime vegan? I'll have to just do that again. Have you noticed a massive difference from like obviously the early days to now, what's your kind of impression of veganism now and the vegan movement now compared to how it was? Have you noticed, have there been any kind of pivotal moments or changes that you've really noticed and that stand out to you? And yeah, just generally, what's your view on the changes?
One thing I have noticed is that people have their own reasons for becoming vegan, and they're not always the moral reasons. Everybody's got their reason, and I'd like to say I don't care what their reason is as long as they do it. I do care, but as long as they do it, it's okay with me. When the veganism first started, the only people that were vegan were those that wanted to, because of the animal problem, the animal side of it. You know, it was a moral thing with them. Not so much today. I mean, there are a lot of us about, but a lot of people are becoming vegans purely for health reasons.
Do you think though
not for a moral one?
That they're really vegan in the sense, not in the philosophical sense, but in the sense that someone who is vegan for health reasons, they would probably buy leather stuff or cosmetics tested on animals. And
that's probably quite true. That's probably quite true. But at least they're making the effort and they've made a change. Every little helps, as I remember hearing from somewhere. If you know what I mean.
Sainsbury's.
You know, unfortunately, you have to give and take in this world. I don't buy leather stuff, but because I don't. For the same reason you probably don't. But other people do. When you were saying earlier on that, you know, people who become vegan later in life not necessarily have the same reason we do. I mean, I do it for the sake of animals, and I'm quite happy with it. I'm, you know, I think for my age, I'm pretty good.
You'll never.
Would you say
70, John?
Would you say those people never make it past 70? So you'll never make it past 70.
Who's that? Who's not?
Roger says that about you.
You'll never do it. Yeah, you were saying you're feeling good. I said you'll never make it past 70.
Yes,
well,
I just because
70 is in the long distant past to me.
So I just wanted to clarify with John if you would think that maybe the people who, as you said, go vegan for non-ethical reasons, people who maybe just are choosing to consume plant-based food, would you consider them to be maybe just eating like vegans, so they're more plant-based eaters as opposed to being vegan? Because would you not kind of think that veganism really is the ethical stance? Actually, is that not where you think it came from your dad and from the early pioneers? And is it not the ethical stance that actually is that's the root of it, the ethics and the morals, rather than just the diet side of it? Does that make sense?
That was the reason initially, but times change and things change. People see the light, like we were saying earlier about people who eat meat. They're blind to some things, or don't want to know, and it's quite possible that some of these so-called vegans don't go the whole hog as we do, because of the animal reason. They do it for health reasons for themselves. I know a group of people, and I'm not going to mention names, who query us having pets, having pet animals. They think it's wrong. I'm not going to disagree with them. I'm not going to argue with them. That's their point of view, and that I respect that. But I've had dogs and cats all my life. All my life I've had them, but they don't think. See, that's another angle. Should you have pets? Should you have pet animals? Is it right? Is it wrong? Is it bad for the animal? I don't think so, personally. I think if you love the animal and you look after it properly and give it the life and everything that it needs and should have and treat it properly, I don't have a problem with that. But some people do.
I think for me, it's more the breeding, and I think it's bringing those individuals into the world for human gain. I think we get to take care of the other animals that are here because they're here, and we get to give them the best life that we possibly can. But I think the situation is not ideal,
Right.
and that we should not be breeding and bringing these individuals into existence for our own gain. So I think that's a whole show in itself. Actually, we could, definitely do it.
Well,
Furthermore,
got another question came up the other day on the vegan website. Somebody said, I've become vegan recently, but I've still got some leather shoes and a leather belt. Should I use them? Should I wear them? And my answer to that is yes, simply because you've already got it. You won't do any good or any harm by making use of it now, but don't buy any more. That's my answer to that. Yes, use it. No, it won't make any difference whether you do or not. They've already got it. Now they've seen the light. Fair enough. Wear it out. Wear your shoes out. Get some that aren't from animals. Wear the belt till it breaks or whatever, and then go out and buy one that's not made from animals. But why waste something if you've already got it? It will do absolutely no good or harm by continuing to use it. Just don't replace it with the same stuff.
I think that all vegans at the beginning have the same dilemma what to do with the leather products, for example. I had the same dilemma. Yes. And my view to it was that if I continue to go out with a leather jacket, I'm in a way normalizing wearing someone's skin on you. So what I decided to do was to give it away to friends or family who would buy a leather jacket. Yes. So I could stop them from doing that, and at the same time, I would not go out advertising wearing someone's skin. What do you think?
Yes, you're going to be discreet about it, or sensible. But on the other hand, a jacket's a little bit different to a pair of shoes or a belt. Essentially, it's the same. I quite understand. But
I agree with you.
It's rather more visible.
Yeah, jacket is different. I mean, and I think a lot of vegans would have a different. I mean, they'll agree with you. I think, John, on the shoes and the belt, particularly the belt. The jacket will be different, and certainly fur would be seen as different, I would say.
Absolutely, yes. A lot of companies have stopped that now. I've noticed in the past few years.
We're over the hour, John. So I just wanted to, in terms of your father, I regard your dad as pretty significant in terms of the evolution of vegan philosophy. But in terms of his own kind of life, he had a really long-term spinal injury, didn't he, which affected him greatly. Yeah.
Yes, he couldn't sleep. He had to take drugs to sleep all his life virtually. Unfortunately, and of course in those days they didn't have the drugs they've got today. It was all barbiturate, which is not good for you, but there was no alternative. And eventually his heart just gave out through so many years of taking these tablets to try and sleep. He died in his sleep on a Saturday night, Sunday morning.
Do you remember what caused the injury?
Yes, he fell over a cliff. Apparently, he told me. Obviously not like the White Cliffs of Dover, but he fell over a cliff and it damaged his spine in his neck, and it just caused the problems with sleep when he was only young lad.
Yeah, it was a lifelong problem, which is a real shame. Yes. And he was a journalist. So
yes, Yes.
He was a journalist working for newspapers, or
Yes. Newspapers. Yeah.
yeah. Because I mean, I'm a big fan of Leslie Cross's essays, and they are really well written. There's no doubt about that, you know. And I think it's great in the sense that from about 1949 through to 1954, 55, Leslie Cross was kind of almost like thinking out loud through the pages of The Vegan.
Yeah.
And by reading through all that, you end up with vegan philosophy. So, you know,
Yeah.
I think the movement is in great debt to your father in particular. I would always argue that. So,
Well, there is a rumour going round that Donald Watson formed the Vegan Society, which is totally not true. It was Arthur Ling, my dad, and Donald Watson that formed it. They were the first three members. And somewhere in one of his writings, Donald Watson said that Leslie Cross and Arthur Ling were very useful or helpful. I thought, I know what
well,
I know.
there's a few times when Watson really praises your dad and Arthur, and saying that because he used phrases like they were excellent servants of the cause, and that kind of phraseology, you know.
Yes, that would be the way he'd say it. Yes.
I had a conversation about who coined the word vegan, and I said if you tune in tonight at 6 o'clock to the I'm Right show, you'll hear Leslie Cross's son suggest that his father played a hand. Watson allegedly says it was him and his wife, and then some feminists say it was Elsie Shrigley. So it's a contested idea, and I suppose it might always be. I suppose it's something we might never really know in a way. I mean, I know you're saying that you have a distinct memory, but almost saying people are contesting it, aren't they?
Well, I was there. I can only say what I saw and what happened. I know that all three of them, Donald, Arthur, and my dad, were puzzling for several days over what to call themselves or call the society. And I remember my dad sitting at our dining room table for a couple of days. Every time he got a chance, he'd sit down and he'd scribble different things and one thing and another. And then he jumped up and he said, "I've got it." Got in touch with Arthur Ling and told him. And they said, "Oh yeah, that sounds good. We'll put it to Donald." They put it to Donald, and then he claimed it was his. That's all I can tell you. I can't tell you any more than
Do you
that.
think the story about the idea that
remember.
vegan was the first three letters of vegetarian, the last two? Do you think that bit is true?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. He got it from the word vegetarian. Yes, definitely.
And do you remember all the other weird and wonderful names that were under consideration, like dairy bans and stuff like that?
There were quite a few.
Yeah.
No, I don't remember. But they
There's
came
some
up.
strange
It did come
ones.
up.
The Total Vegetarian Group was one of them. Benivore was another one, which
Yes,
I'm not quite sure what Benivore is supposed to mean, but I was thinking, well, it might mean we're not carnivores, we're benivores. So there was quite a few different ones.
I can't remember everything. I was only a young kid at the time.
You were.
Yeah, I was. Yeah. I met Elsie Shrigley, and I met quite a few of the others. They were the only vegans I knew outside our family.
John, were all your, because I wanted to ask you this earlier actually, but just as soon as you've mentioned the family, were your mum was vegan too?
Yes.
And then when you met your wife, I imagine she probably wasn't a vegan.
No.
Did she become vegan?
No, I'm afraid not.
So she didn't convert to your ways.
She used to eat some of it. Don't get me wrong. She'd eat some things, but every time she cooked a meal, she had to cook 2 meals in separate pots, which she took to very well. Bless her. She did it really well. I got no complaints. Bless her. Oh, she's up there now. She's up there now. Unfortunately.
Oh, bless her.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else, folks, or do we say goodbye?
I know I've got a million questions for John still, but I know we've got to go.
Well, you got one more. What do you want to ask him?
Get my email address off Roger.
I'm going to get your email address, John. I'm just going to send you an interrogation questionnaire. It's going to be about 4 pages long.
Standard question.
That's fine. That's fine.
It's Jon Cross at Aldi Promotions.
I
Where's Asda?
have one final question, if I may. John,
Yeah.
are you optimistic about the future? Do you think that veganism will be something that most people will embrace at some point?
I think in the far-flung future, and it will be a long, long time, if we're still here, the world will become at least vegetarian, if not vegan. It makes economic sense, if nothing else. I mean, you can produce the main difference in the food is protein. Where do you get your protein from? That's the only really main difference between meat and soya or something like that. And to get it from meat, you have to put the grass or the whatever it is through the animal and eat the animal. If you were to plant that area, those fields with soya or whatever, you produce probably 100% more protein foods than eating the animals. It makes sense. Regardless of the moral side of it, it makes sense anyway. And it's healthy.
And due to the climate crisis as well, do you think that will have a massively influencing factor on people changing to a more plant-based future?
That one single thing is going to make a massive difference to our world. Massive difference. You know where we are now? Where we are now with the temperatures and things that are happening now, this is the norm. What we're trying to do is to hold it where we are. We can't get rid of what we've done already. We can only stop it getting worse. We can't cure what we've already done. All these bigger typhoons and floods and the hot summers, really hot, we're not used to. That's going to be the norm now. We can't go back past that. Everything's changing. Everything's changing. It's. I don't think people realise just how serious it is. I really don't.
No, well, I mean, on that kind of, environmental front, I mean, we're probably going to need veganism, or at least plant-based eating, to actually survive as a species. So
yes,
we might not get a chance in a way, and then hopefully it'll develop to vegan philosophy. So a vegan world is possible, but like you just said there, John, it's a question of whether we've got time almost now.
Yes, yeah.
Yes,
I'm very pessimistic about the future. I'm glad I'm this end of my life and not the other end. That's the way I would put it.
Well, don't pick on us kids there, John.
Oh, sorry.
But John, on a positive note, my final question would be to you: Are you proud of your father's legacy?
Oh, definitely. He's done a lot more than I could have done. Yeah. I mean, he's known all around the world. Apparently in Chile, he's second to God. So I'm told.
God who?
That's Madonna, isn't it? Maradona.
Yeah, he's gone too, hasn't he? Yeah. The hand of
right. And Jeremy, thank you for reminding me about that. Jeremy, I don't know if Jeremy just said, oh, if only, when I said I've got a million questions for John, Jeremy said, if only Wendy had a podcast. And I just planted a little seed there, Jeremy, of course. Thanks.
Yeah, we I don't know. We won't be advertising that now, will we, Wendy?
We might have to get Jon on there, might we?
Yeah. When was the last one, Wendy? When was the last
Oh,
one?
It was a while ago now. Had a little break this year, but
Yes.
it's coming back. It's coming
Good.
back.
You can tell us all about it on Friday on the Vegan with Sky show on the Vegan of Course media platform.
Yeah. The Animal Rights Show is going on Vegan, of course, with Sky. Is Sky still here?
Don't know, actually. Don't know.
But yeah, so
Right,
join us
well,
then.
It goes without saying, Jon, that we've been absolutely thrilled to meet you and to have this interaction with you. It's been fantastic.
Yeah,
And
here.
yeah,
It's been my pleasure and my honour to meet you three.
well, thank you
Oh.
for
Thank you
that.
so much
Lovely.
for doing that.
Lovely.
Oh,
today.
thank you, Jon. Thank you so much. It's been brilliant.
Especially the animals.
Oh yeah, the stars of the show, definitely, without a doubt.
And thank you to Wendy for squeezing some optimism out of the end of the show. So that's so that was good. So
Happy to help.
we're going to say goodbye, and you never know. Maybe Jon will return another time. But until then, thanks again, Jon, and take care. And we'll see you around, everyone.
See you,
Okay,
folks.
you take
Thanks
care.
to everyone in the chat as well.
Bye.
Thanks, Jon.
Bye. Bye.